Dreams put on hold for international students who wish to study at U.S. universities. The State Department is pausing all student visa interviews while it makes changes to its vetting process, including expanded social media check.
Welcome back to the channel that tells it straight. No spin, no censorship, just facts rooted in American values. If you believe in free speech, secure borders, and putting America first, then you're in the right place. Before we dive in, make sure you like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. This helps us bypass big tech's algorithm and gets the truth out to patriots like you. Let's break down a story that's not just about visas and universities. It's about our national identity, our security, and the future of higher education in America.
We do want to get back, though, to the brewing question that is playing out even today about foreign students at universities, the visas that they obtain and come here on, and whether or not the Trump administration can foreclose that very process to international students when it comes to enrollment at these universities here. Our friend and colleague, Fox News' Rebecca Castor, has more details. Let's listen.
Dreams put on hold for international students who wish to study at U.S. universities. The State Department is pausing all student visa interviews while it makes changes to its vetting process, including expanded social media checks.
We want to know where those students come. Are they troublemakers? What countries do they come?
The pause, which is expected to be temporary, comes as the Trump administration is trying to crack down on anti-Semitism on campuses. Any social media posts expressing anti-Jewish views could keep some students from being granted a visa.
Let's start with this. The U.S. State Department has paused student visa interviews to toughen vetting. That means a closer look at what international students are posting online, especially those expressing anti-Semitic or radical views. Now, let me ask you, how is that controversial? If someone wants to come to our country, enjoy our freedoms, and attend our universities, shouldn't we at least know what they stand for? This is National Security 101. And under President Trump, we stopped apologizing for putting American lives first.
The president certainly had great concerns that there are foreign students, not everyone, but there are foreign students who come to this country, I do believe, who helped create this unrest.
Harvard is at the center of the Trump administration's battle with elite universities. Last week, the White House revoked the school's ability to enroll international students, a move Harvard is now fighting in court. Meanwhile, international students already in America feel caught in the crossfire.
Harvard, the Ivy League fortress with a $50 billion endowment, is in the hot seat. Why? Because they refuse to hand over disciplinary records of foreign students. Think about that. They want taxpayer money. They want federal protection. But when asked to cooperate with immigration enforcement, suddenly they act like they're above the law. Harvard isn't a sanctuary. It's not sovereign. It's a university on U.S. soil, funded in part by your tax dollars. And it's time they started acting like it.
We're all panicking, we're all overwhelmed. Time of uncertainty, literally, I've never experienced it before.
It feels very disorienting to have to try to think about whether or not I'm welcome here.
Harvard and White House lawyers will be back in court for arguments on this matter Thursday. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. We do have a live vantage point over Boston, Mass. Take a look at that. You see there. In the meantime, though, this is the news today. I want to put this up from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He says this: the United States will begin revoking visas of Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. Let's talk about all of this because it's all of the same piece. We're going to do that with Jay Green at the Heritage Foundation. He joins me. Jay, good to see you here. I know you obviously have been following this extremely closely. It seems like there's kind of two strains of thought. Revoking visas from international students who already have a visa, they already got one, and they're already enrolled, and then whole cloth preventing international students from enrolling at Harvard, carte blanche. Can you help us tease out those strains?
So, look, coming to the United States to study is a privilege, not a right. And so students have to apply for visas and they have to follow certain rules. And part of the problem is that we have 1.1 million foreign students in the United States, and that's actually too many for the US government really to keep track of and to ensure are following the rules. So they depend on the universities that are hosting those students to cooperate, to actually enforce rules on those students and report violations to the government so that visas can be revoked. The problem is that many of these selective universities, Harvard, Columbia, MIT, appear to be failing to enforce their rules in order to shield international students from consequences. So they're acting like sanctuary cities where they don't want the students deported, so they don't crack down on rules, they don't suspend them, and they don't report the information to the government. This has forced the Trump administration to demand disciplinary records from Harvard so that they could find out who's breaking the rules. And Harvard is refusing to turn over those records. And it's because Harvard refused to turn over the records that the Trump administration has suspended the ability of Harvard to participate in enrolling foreign students. Now, that does not revoke the visas of the students there. They still have visas, they can transfer to other schools. They just wouldn't be able to enroll at Harvard this fall.
What we're seeing is Ivy League schools turning into sanctuary campuses, shielding foreign students from deportation by refusing to report visa violations. Let me be clear, this is not about racism. This is not about xenophobia. This is about rule of law. If you're here on a visa, you follow the rules or you leave. No exceptions. No elite loopholes.
You just kind of laid out kind of the rationale from the Trump administration about why they're doing this. I got to ask you, though, do they have the power and the authority to do this? Because this was swiftly, temporarily paused. This federal judge there in Boston suspended enforcement of this decision until the courts can consider the matter. They'll be in court very, very soon later this week. So does a presidential administration, does the executive branch, can it tell Harvard, you can't take in any more international students until you do X, Y, and Z?
Look, the courts will ultimately decide. And you can expect that Harvard is likely to win in the first round because they go to judges in Boston who are friendly to them. And that's why they win initially. Now, whether they win ultimately is unclear. But the point is that even if Harvard wins in court and they are allowed to continue enrolling foreign students, that doesn't mean that their students will continue getting visas to enter the country and come study with them. That has to be done by embassies and consulates around the country, and those decisions, the decision to grant or deny a visa, is not subject to judicial review. This is a Supreme Court doctrine called consular non-reviewability. So even if Harvard wins, they're likely to lose anyway. And so I suspect this is all just positioning for what will ultimately be an agreement between Harvard and the Trump administration.
Now, a federal judge in Boston has paused the Trump administration's decision to block Harvard from enrolling new international students. Not surprising. Liberal strongholds like Boston have activist judges eager to stall any America First policy. But here's the kicker. Visa decisions are made by consulates and embassies, and those decisions are not subject to judicial review. So even if the courts temporarily protect Harvard's power grab, they can't force the State Department to issue visas. That's constitutional authority, and it's still in the president's hands.
I have to ask, because obviously we use here, especially in the media, the word unprecedented a lot with regard to the Trump administration. Has this ever been adjudicated, this issue, in the federal courts, at the Supreme Court, whether a presidential administration can meddle into the kind of good working order or not of a university when it comes to the enrollment of foreign students, the revoking of their visas? Has it ever been adjudicated? Are we crossing the Rubicon here?
Actually, these are not such unprecedented incidents. They are in accumulation and in speed. All of that is unprecedented. But the fact that a presidential administration has intervened with private universities and told them they need to change operations in order to comply with civil rights law, Obama did that. Obama did that with Title IX. He told all the universities they had to change their due process procedures with regard to sexual harassment or assault charges. Universities resisted, said that they were autonomous, that they didn't want to change. Obama forced them. Yeshiva University, just last year, was forced to have an LGBTQ club. The university said we're private, it's against our mission, against our principles. Civil rights law was interpreted as forcing them to do so. And so the idea that universities are forced to do things, including private universities, because administrations believe civil rights requires it, is something that actually occurs fairly regularly.
Liberals are crying foul, but here's the truth. This kind of federal intervention isn't new. Remember when Obama used Title IX to force universities to overhaul their policies on sexual misconduct, or when courts forced religious schools to recognize clubs that went against their beliefs. So when Trump enforces civil rights protections for Jewish students and expects universities to cooperate, suddenly that's tyranny? Please, the hypocrisy is staggering.
So just to kind of play out the hypothetical here, say Harvard didn't take any federal grants, say their endowment was not tax exempt, say they didn't have hardly any affiliation with the federal government, would we still see, you think, some of these actions, or could they be left alone?
So if they don't want to have any interference, they could be left alone if they simply decline taking taxpayer money. Hillsdale College in Michigan is a good example of an institution that preserves its autonomy and operates the way it wishes because it does not take taxpayer money. Harvard takes quite a lot of taxpayer money, even though it has more than $50 billion endowment, and therefore is subject to the Civil Rights Act and Title VI and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act, and then they have to work things out with the Trump administration. On the issue of foreign students, however, no university is exempt from needing to get visas and follow the rules for visas for their students. And so that is something that every university must follow because entry to this country is controlled by the administration.
Let's talk money. Harvard rakes in billions, yet still accepts federal funding. And with that money comes accountability. If they don't want Uncle Sam involved, they can reject the cash, just like Hillsdale College did. But they won't, because they love the money, they just hate the rules that come with it.
Yes, I'm familiar with Hillsdale College. My father is an alum here. I want to move on, though, to another side of this story here. The announcement by Secretary Rubio today, because it's not just enrolling international students, it's if they violate X, Y, and Z, they will have them revoked. You see here from Secretary Rubio saying the United States will begin revoking visas of Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields.
Senator Marco Rubio made headlines by announcing the U.S. will start revoking visas of Chinese students with ties to the Communist Party or studying in critical fields. Good. It's long overdue. We've been importing the next generation of CCP loyalists, handing them access to sensitive research, and then acting shocked when they take that knowledge back to Beijing. Trump knew this. He tried to stop it. Now the rest of Washington is finally catching up.
Are there free speech issues here, Jay? Not when it just comes to this, but when it comes to some of these, who have proclivities toward the Palestinian cause, the writings that they have done, the speeches that they have made, their affiliation with certain groups. Do you see any gray area there on free speech First Amendment grounds for these students, yes, who are foreign students?
So actually, I don't see any free speech issues here.
Okay.
So there is no free speech exemption to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. That is, universities must ensure that all students are able to access the benefits of their education and cannot be denied those benefits because of their race, color, or national origin. Jews are covered under this, under the national origin term. And so you can't do things that interfere with the ability of people to access their education and say, well, it's just my speech.
Let's clear something up. Foreign students don't have First Amendment rights. They're guests, not citizens. If you're on a visa and using your platform to spread hate, call for violence, or disrupt campus life, you're not protected by the Constitution. Free speech doesn't mean free entry. And yes, we have every right to deny or revoke a visa based on your political loyalties. That's not censorship, it's common sense.
Remember, the civil rights violations that we're concerned about here are not simply things that people say about how they feel about the war in the Middle East or how they feel about Palestinian cause. None of those things are violations of civil rights. What are violations, and what all of these universities have permitted, enabled, and even rewarded, is blocking Jewish students from crossing campus and going to their classes, disrupting the normal educational process by standing up in the middle of class and shouting slogans, and even assaulting Jewish students, which has twice occurred at Harvard. And in fact, one of the students accused of assaulting a Jewish student has been declared marshal of the commencement at the Divinity School this week.
Here's what Harvard won't tell you. Jewish students are being harassed, blocked from attending classes, and even assaulted. And the school looks the other way. The Trump administration isn't targeting opinions. It's going after actions, disrupting class, intimidating fellow students, assaulting others. These aren't protests. They're violations of civil rights. And the universities that allow it, they're complicit.
Yes.
And so they continue to reward students who don't say things, but who do things that interfere with the ability of Jews to get the benefits of their education.
But back to the news about Secretary Rubio. So if a Chinese student on a visa is a declared member of the Chinese Communist Party, is that grounds for getting the visa revoked? Under Title VI?
Right, it is not. So it's not a Title VI issue. That is an immigration issue. So the Immigration and Nationalization Act actually says explicitly that declaration of commitment to certain political causes can make one inadmissible for entry into the U.S., and it follows, can also be cause for their removal, the revocation of their visa, and their deportation. And so foreign students don't have the same political rights as U.S. citizens do, and their political affiliations and their declared loyalties, especially if they're contrary to American interests, can be cause for them not entering the U.S. and not being allowed to stay in the U.S. And so it is perfectly within the ability of the Secretary of State to say that members of the Communist Party would be unwelcome in the U.S. And that's not a free speech issue. It's not a First Amendment issue because these students don't have the protection of the First Amendment.
All right, we're going to have to leave it at that, Jay Green. It was quite a lively conversation, but it's a lot, and we're kind of piecing it all together. There's a lot of strains here, but we'll definitely be speaking again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This is bigger than Harvard, bigger than visas. This is a battle over whether America will remain a nation of laws or a playground for global elites who believe they're above accountability. President Trump drew the line. He said, if you take American money, follow American law. If you want to come to our country, respect our values. And if you threaten our citizens, your visa is gone. That's not extreme. That's leadership. If you believe in borders, in civil rights for all students, and in holding powerful institutions accountable, share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more unapologetically American commentary. We're not backing down. Not now. Not ever. Thanks for watching. Stay bold. Stay free. Stay informed.